You wake up, and within 60 seconds it starts. The wait. The low-grade hum of something you can't name. You reach for your phone, and before you've even opened your eyes, you're already carrying things that aren't yours. Someone else's mood from last night. A deadline you didn't set. A problem someone else created and left on your doorstep like a package you never ordered. And here's the costly mistake most people make in that moment. They ask the wrong question. They ask, whose fault is this? And the moment you ask, whose fault is this, you hand your power to someone else. Because if it's their fault, then they're the one who has to fix it. And if they don't fix it, you're stuck. You're waiting. You're resentful. You're powerless. That's the comfortable lie most people live by. The lie that if something isn't your fault, it isn't your problem. And that lie is exactly why you still don't feel whole. Why you still don't feel like you. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Fault and responsibility are not the same thing. Fault is about the past. Responsibility is about the future. Fault asks who caused this. Responsibility asks what's mine to do about it. And that distinction, that pivot, is the single most powerful shift you can make in your entire life. Self-respect isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build by taking ownership of your response to what happens to you, even when what happened isn't your fault, especially when it isn't. Think about it. Think about the last time something went wrong in your life. Something genuinely painful. Maybe someone betrayed you. Maybe you were dealt a bad hand. Maybe the world simply wasn't fair. And in that moment, what did your mind do? It went looking for fault. It built a case. It collected evidence. It rehearsed the argument. And while you were busy building that case, the clock was ticking. The wound was still open. The situation was still deteriorating. And you weren't doing a single thing about it because you were too busy being right about whose fault it was. Most people call this processing. The Stoics would call it a surrender. You surrendered your agency the moment you decided that being right about blame was more important than being effective in response. Let me say that again because it matters. You surrendered your agency the moment you decided that being right about blame was more important than being effective in response. Epictetus understood this at a level most people never reach. He was born a slave. He was crippled. He was eventually exiled. By any modern standard, almost nothing in his life was his fault. He didn't choose to be born into bondage. He didn't choose the body he was given. He didn't choose to be banished from the city he called home. And yet he looked at all of that and said something that sounds almost cold until you realize it's the warmest thing anyone has ever offered you. He said there are things within your power and things not within your power. Your opinions, your impulses, your desires, your aversions, your mind, your inner life. That's within your power. Your body, your possessions, your reputation, your status, what other people do to you, what the world hands you. That's not within your power. And here's the part most people miss. Epictetus wasn't saying don't care about what happens to you. He wasn't saying be a stone. He was saying something far more radical. He was saying the event was never yours to carry. The event belongs to the world. But your response to the event, that belongs to you entirely. And that's where your freedom lives. Not in controlling what happens. In controlling what you do about what happens. Now here's where things get interesting. Because there's a tension here that most people feel but never resolve. On one side, you have this idea that you should take responsibility for everything in your life. Even the things that aren't your fault. Your trauma, your circumstances, your pain. All of it. You own it. You deal with it. You don't wait for the person who caused it to come fix it. Because they won't. On the other side, you have Epictetus saying release what's outside your control entirely. Don't attach to it. Don't carry it. Let it go. And these two ideas seem to pull in opposite directions. One says grab hold of everything. The other says let go of everything. Most people pick a side and stay there. They either become the person who takes everything on, carries everyone's weight, never rests, and eventually burns out from a kind of responsibility that was never theirs to carry. Or they become the person who lets everything go, who says not my problem, who feels lighter for a while until they realize they've also let go of their own life. But the truth is in the synthesis. And the synthesis is this. You take responsibility for your response. You release responsibility for the event. Read that again in your mind. You take responsibility for your response. You release responsibility for the event. The event happened. It wasn't your fault. You didn't cause it. You didn't deserve it. You don't have to carry the weight of having created it. That's not yours. Let it go. But your response, what you do next, how you carry yourself through it, how you heal, how you grow, how you show up for yourself and the people around you in the aftermath, that is entirely, completely, non-negotiably yours. And here's why this matters more than almost anything else you'll hear today. Blame is a form of powerlessness. Say it to yourself. Blame is a form of powerlessness. When you blame, you're saying someone else caused this, and therefore someone else has to fix it. You're saying your well-being depends on someone else's action. You're saying your peace is in their hands. You're saying your future is determined by what they do or don't do. And maybe they should fix it. Maybe they owe you an apology. Maybe they owe you restitution. Maybe the universe owes you fairness. But here's what nobody tells you. The universe doesn't pay its debts. And the people who hurt you rarely arrive with the apology you need. So you can wait. You can be right. You can be owed. And you can stay exactly where you are. Or you can pivot. You can say this happened. It wasn't my fault. And it is my responsibility to deal with it. Not because I should have to. Because I'm the only one who can. Because my healing is mine. My growth is mine. My future is mine. And no one, no matter how much they owe me, is going to build it for me. That's not bitterness. That's not coldness. That's the beginning of real power. Viktor Frankl discovered this in a place where no one should have been able to discover anything. He was in a concentration camp. Everything had been taken from him. His family, his freedom, his name, his profession, his dignity. By every measure of fault, none of it was his. He did nothing to deserve it. And yet in that place, in the most extreme circumstances a human being can endure, he found something that could not be taken. The last of human freedoms. The ability to choose his response in any given set of circumstances. They could take his body. They could take his belongings. They could take his family. But they could not take the space between what happened to him and how he responded to it. That space was his. And in that space, he was free. Now you may never face anything that extreme. Most of us won't. But the principle is the same whether the circumstance is enormous or ordinary. Your boss treats you unfairly. Your partner is emotionally unavailable. Your parent was neglectful. Your friend betrayed your trust. The economy collapsed. Your health failed. None of it was your fault. All of it is your responsibility to respond to. Not to have caused. To respond to. There's a difference, and the difference is everything. Let me give you something concrete. The next time something goes wrong, something painful, something unfair, something that makes you want to point a finger and say this is your fault, I want you to pause, just for a moment. And in that pause, I want you to ask yourself one question. Not whose fault is this, but what's mine to do about it? That's the pivot. That's the entire practice distilled into a single question. What's mine to do about it? Not what should they do about it? Not what would be fair? Not what they owe me? What's mine to do about it? Because here's what happens when you ask that question. Your brain shifts. It shifts from the past to the future, from blame to action, from helplessness to agency, from the part of you that wants to be right to the part of you that wants to be free. And in that shift, something changes. Not in the world, in you. You stop being a victim of what happened, and you start being the author of what comes next. That's not a small thing. That's everything. Now let's be honest about something. This is hard. This is genuinely hard. Because blame feels good. It does. There's a relief in it. A sedative quality. When you can point at someone or something and say you did this to me, you get to stop. You get to rest. You get to be the injured party. You get sympathy. You get validation. You get to be right. And being right feels powerful even when it's making you powerless. But it's a trap. It's the most comfortable trap there is. Because the longer you stay in it, the smaller your life becomes. You stop making decisions. You stop taking risks. You stop trying. Because everything becomes about what was done to you instead of what you're going to do about it. And slowly, without even noticing, you hand over the steering wheel of your life to people who don't even know they're driving. That's what blame does. It doesn't hurt the person you're blaming. It hollows you out. David Goggins understood this at a level that most people find uncomfortable. He looked at his own life, a life that started with abuse and poverty and every disadvantage you can imagine, and he made a decision that sounds almost brutal until you realize it's the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself. He decided that no matter what happened to him, no matter whose fault it was, he was going to take full responsibility for changing it. No excuses, no rationalizations, no waiting for someone to come make it right. He was going to own his response entirely. And that level of ownership, that extreme accountability, is painful. It's painful because it means you can't hide anymore. You can't use your story as a shield. You can't use unfairness as an excuse to stay small. You have to look at everything, and say this may not be my fault, but it is my responsibility to deal with it. That hurts. And it also sets you free. Because the moment you say that, you get your power back. All of it. You're no longer waiting for anyone. You're no longer dependent on an apology that may never come. You're no longer renting your peace from the person who hurt you. You own it. Now I want to be clear about something, because this is where people get confused. Taking responsibility for your response does not mean pretending the event didn't matter. It doesn't mean stuffing your emotions down. It doesn't mean acting like you weren't hurt. The Stoics weren't robots. Epictetus wasn't telling you to feel nothing. He was telling you to feel everything and then choose what to do with it. There's a difference between feeling the pain and being defined by it, between acknowledging what happened and being imprisoned by it. You can say this was not my fault and I am hurt by it, and it is my responsibility to heal from it. All three of those things can be true at the same time. In fact, they need to be. Because if you skip the first part, if you pretend it didn't hurt, you're not taking responsibility. You're avoiding the truth. And if you skip the last part, if you stay in the hurt without moving toward healing, you're not being honest about your pain. You're being loyal to it. And loyalty to your pain is the most expensive loyalty there is. It costs you everything. Your time, your energy, your relationships, your future. All of it gets poured into maintaining the wound instead of treating it. So let me give you the practice. The concrete, daily practice of the responsibility pivot. When something happens that hurts you, that's unfair, that isn't your fault. Step 1. Acknowledge the truth. Say it out loud if you need to. This was not my fault. I did not cause this. I did not deserve this. Let yourself feel that. Let the unfairness of it land. Don't skip this step. Because if you try to jump straight to responsibility without first acknowledging that you were wronged, you'll end up blaming yourself for something that was done to you. And that's not responsibility. That's self-punishment. There's a difference. Step 2. Draw the line. This is the Epictetus move. Say to yourself, the event is not within my control. It has already happened. It belongs to the past. It belongs to the world. I release it. I am not responsible for having caused it. I am not responsible for making the person who caused it apologize. I am not responsible for the universe being fair. I let all of that go. And then step 3. The pivot. Ask the question, what is mine to do about it? Not what should be done. What is mine to do? What action, what response, what choice is within my power right now? Maybe it's setting a boundary. Maybe it's seeking help. Maybe it's changing a pattern. Maybe it's simply choosing how you're going to carry yourself through the rest of the day. But it's something. There's always something. And that something is yours. No one can take it from you. No one can do it for you. It's yours. And that's where your power lives. Not in the event. In the response. Always in the response. Now here's something that happens when you start practicing this. At first it feels heavy. Because you're taking on more than you're used to. You're used to offloading. You're used to saying that's their problem. That's the world's problem. That's not mine to fix. And now you're saying it is mine to deal with. And that feels like weight. But here's the paradox. The weight of responsibility is lighter than the weight of resentment. It doesn't feel like it at first, but it is. Because resentment is a weight you carry forever. It never gets lighter. It only gets heavier. Every time you rehearse the grievance, Every time you tell the story of what was done to you, every time you wait for someone to make it right, you add another stone to the bag. Responsibility, on the other hand, gets lighter over time. Because every action you take, every step you make toward healing or change or growth, removes a stone. You're moving, you're building, you're becoming. And the weight transforms from a burden into a foundation. That's what responsibility does. It doesn't weigh you down. It gives you ground to stand on. There's something else that happens too. Something quieter but more profound. When you start taking responsibility for your response instead of waiting for fault to be assigned, your relationship with yourself changes. You start to respect yourself, not because you've done anything impressive, but because you've stopped abandoning yourself. Think about it. Every time you say that's their fault and they need to fix it, you're saying my well-being depends on them. My healing depends on them. My future depends on them. You're outsourcing yourself. And some part of you knows it. Some part of you feels the abandonment. And that part loses trust in you. It thinks if things go wrong, I'm on my own. Not because the world is unfair, but because even I won't show up for me. Even I will wait for someone else to fix it. But when you pivot, when you say this isn't my fault and it is my responsibility to respond, something shifts inside. That abandoned part of you looks up and says, oh, you're here. You're not going to wait for them. You're going to handle this. You're going to show up. And slowly, action by action, you rebuild trust with yourself. That's what self-respect actually is. It's not a feeling you generate by looking in the mirror and saying nice things. It's the earned confidence that you will show up for yourself when it matters. That you won't abandon yourself when things go wrong. That you'll take responsibility for your response even when the event wasn't your fault. Self-respect is a behavior, not a feeling. And the behavior is the pivot. Carl Jung understood something about this that adds another layer. He talked about the shadow, the part of ourselves we don't want to look at. And here's what's interesting about blame. Blame is often a shadow projection. When you're consumed by someone else's fault, when you can't stop thinking about what they did, when the injustice eats you alive, sometimes what you're actually looking at is your own unlived responsibility. The thing you know you should be doing but aren't. The action you're avoiding. The growth you're postponing. It's easier to focus on their failure than on your unused power. So the obsession with fault isn't just keeping you stuck. It's hiding you from yourself. And when you pivot, when you shift from whose fault is this to what's mine to do about it, you're not just changing a question. You're integrating a shadow. You're reclaiming a part of yourself you'd been projecting outward. You're saying I see what they did, and I also see what I haven't been doing. And I'm going to deal with both. Let me tell you something about the people who practice this. They're not the loudest people in the room. They're not the ones posting about their transformation. They're not the ones who have the most dramatic story about what was done to them. They're the quiet ones. The ones who seem strangely steady. The ones who, when something goes wrong, don't spiral into blame and don't collapse into helplessness. They just pause. They assess. They ask what's mine to do about it. And then they do it. Without fanfare. Without needing credit. Without needing everyone to know how unfair it was and how brave they're being. They just handle it. And there's a kind of power in that you can feel when you're near it. A quiet, unshakable power. The power of someone who has stopped renting their life from other people's behavior. Someone who has stopped waiting for the world to be fair. Someone who has taken responsibility for the only thing they can actually control. Their response. That's the power the Stoics were pointing at. Not the power to control events. The power to remain yourself no matter what the events are. And that power, let me tell you, is available to you right now. Not after you've healed enough. Not after you've processed enough. Not after the person who hurt you has finally understood what they did. Right now, in whatever situation you're in, with whatever unfairness you're carrying, right now you can pause and ask what's mine to do about it. And the answer doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture or a complete life overhaul. It can be small. It can be I'm going to get out of bed and take a walk. I'm going to send that email I've been avoiding. I'm going to have the conversation I've been postponing. I'm going to stop rehearsing the grievance for 1 hour. Small actions. Real actions. Yours. And each one is a brick in the foundation of a self you actually respect. Because here's the thing about responsibility that most people miss. It's not a burden. It's a gift. It's the gift of being able to do something about your own life. Imagine if you truly couldn't. Imagine if your response was determined entirely by what happened to you. If every unfair thing automatically produced a fixed reaction in you, and there was nothing you could do about it. That would be hell. That would be the definition of powerlessness. But you can. You can choose. Even in small ways. Even when everything has gone wrong. You can choose what to do next. And that ability, that freedom, is the most valuable thing you possess. More valuable than comfort. More valuable than being right about whose fault it was. More valuable than the apology you're waiting for. So here's what I want you to take with you. Not as an idea, as a practice. The next time life hands you something that isn't your fault, something unfair, something painful, something that makes you want to point outward and say you did this. Pause. Feel the unfairness. Acknowledge that you didn't cause it. And then ask yourself the only question that matters. What's mine to do about it? Not because it's fair. Not because you should have to. Because you're the only one who can. Because your response is the only thing that's truly yours. And because blame, no matter how justified, is a form of powerlessness you can no longer afford. You've been carrying things that weren't yours and calling it responsibility. You've been waiting for people to fix what they broke and calling it patience. You've been rehearsing your grievances and calling it processing. It's time to put it down. All of it. The fault, the blame, the waiting, the story of what was done to you. Put it down. And pick up the only thing that was ever actually yours. Your response. Your action. Your next move. That's the pivot. And it changes everything. Not the event. You. It changes you. And you are the only variable that matters. So make the pivot. Today. With whatever you're carrying. Ask what's mine to do about it. And then do it. Quietly. Steadily. Without needing anyone to see. That's what power looks like when it's real. It doesn't announce itself. It just moves. And it moves you forward. Always forward. Even when the ground is uneven. Even when the wind is against you. You move. Because you chose to. Because you took responsibility for the one thing that was always yours. Your response. Stay responsible.